Good morning. Today we're going to continue our discussion on the phylum Mollusca, and then we're going to move into the phylum Annelidia. So we talked yesterday about some of these notes, but I just want to make sure that I hit and go over all the important parts. So I showed you the cladogram yesterday, and on the cladogram you're going to see different derived characteristics that organisms have developed. So we have the evolution of true tissues, the evolution of bilateral symmetry, a true coelom, radial symmetry, no body cavity, false body cavity. So today we're going to focus on organisms that have developed a true body cavity or a coelom, and then segmentation, or the first experience with segmentation. So our mollusks and our annelids. Species that exist in the phylum Mollusca are snails, slugs, oysters, clams, octopus, and squid. These are usually soft-bodied with one or two hard shells of calcium carbonate. Like I said yesterday, there are three main parts of their body plan. They have a foot, a visceral mass, and a mantle. The foot, the major function of the foot is going to be locomotion or movement. The visceral mass is going to contain most of the internal organs, and then the mantle is going to be a folded tissue that drapes over the visceral mass and will secrete the shell in the mollusks, such as the clam and the snail. The shell is going to act as a protector for the organs that are contained within the visceral mass. The mantle that extends beyond the visceral mass is going to form the mantle cavity, which is going to house the gills. If you look at this picture here, you can see all the different parts of the body plan of a mollusk. The foot down on the bottom right here is going to secrete a substance that's going to help the mollusk move or glide along the surface. It's slime-like in nature. And if you've ever picked up a snail or a slug, you can sometimes have that slime left over in your hand. And that slime, the purpose of the slime is to help aid in movement of the slug or the snail. Here we have the mantle, and then the shell that covers the mantle cavity. Inside the mantle cavity, you have the visceral mass or the visceral organs. And then you can see, starting with the mouth, the radula, which is the rasping tongue-like organ that's going to push the food in. The food's going to enter. It's going to go into the stomach and then through the intestines. And then we also have different organ systems. So you have the digestive system here, reproductive, circulatory, and then organs for excretion, getting rid of waste. So your nephridium is going to help aid in that process of getting rid of wastes. And then the gill. There's about 150,000 species of mollusks, and they're the second largest invertebrate phylum. These organisms developed a true body cavity or a true coelom. They do not have segmentation yet. They have bilateral symmetry, and most are found in marine, freshwater, and terrestrial habitats. This is a picture of a snail, and you can see very distinctly the three different body parts of the snail or a mollusk. The foot down here, you have the shell that covers the mantle cavity, and inside the mantle cavity you have the visceral mass or the organs underneath protected. And then here you have tentacles, and on the tentacles you're going to have eye spots that are going to help the organism guide the organism through its surroundings. Occasionally, like I said, the mantle cavity extends past the visceral mass and produces the mantle extends past the visceral mass and produces the mantle cavity, which is going to house the gills. Mollusks have what we call an open circulatory system, an organ system that pumps blood and distributes nutrients and oxygen throughout their body. They also have various organ systems for excretion, circulation, respiration, digestion, and reproduction. Many, like I said before, except for the bivalves, are going to have that rasping tongue-like organ called the radula, which is going to be used to scrape food inside the mouth. Many have sexes that cross-fertilize eggs, and some species of snails and slugs are hermaphrodites. Most mollusks are going to have separate sexes. The life cycle of many marine mollusks includes a larval stage called the trophophore. There are 8 classes of mollusks, and the 3 most important are laid out in your textbook. The first being gastropods, second being bivalves, and third being cephalopods. Gastropods consist of snails and slugs, bivalves, clams, scallops, and oysters, and then cephalopods are your squid and your octopi. Let's start with gastropods. Gastropods are found in freshwater and saltwater and also terrestrial environments. They include only the mollusks that live on land, and most gastropods are protected by a singular shell in which they can retreat from predators, so they're one-shelled. They have eyes with tentacles, like the land snail. They're going to lack gills. Instead, the lining of the mantle functions as a lung, exchanging gases with air. Slugs are unusual mollusks in that they have lost their mantle during shell evolution. So gastropods consist of the snail and the slug. The snail has one shell and the slug has no shell. The land species are going to secrete a mucus at the base of their foot, which is going to form that slimy path that the gastropod can glide on and move at a snail's pace. Some are going to eat algae, and others are active predators that will bore holes in other organisms' shells and then suck out the tissue. Most have tentacles on their head with eyes at the tips. Next, your book covers bivalves. So here are a few examples of bivalves. Bivalves consist of 2 shells, so 2 halves, bi meaning 2 and then valve meaning shell. They're going to be hinged together with a pair of adductor muscles. And those adductor muscles are going to allow for the organism to filter water through to gather nutrients, and then also they allow for the organism to move and escape predators. So they're going to basically flap their adductor muscles, opening the shell and closing the shell to filter out any nutrients that they need, and then also do that fairly quickly to escape predators. Most are sessile, but some can move quickly to get away from predators, and then they also have the mantle cavity that contains gills for feeding as well as gas exchange. These bivalves do not have a distinct head region or a radula. They have a nerve ganglion that serves as a brain, and like I said before, they are filter feeders that trap food in their mucus of their gills. Some are going to have hollow tubes called siphons that we're going to draw in water. Bivalves, you're most familiar with their uses. If you've ever seen like watches or pieces of jewelry, most are used essentially to make the jewelry. So the lining or the inside lining of mussels are used to make pearl buttons. Mother of pearl oysters are used to decorate items and make jewelry. Some oysters make pearls when foreign objects get lodged in between the mollusk's shell and the mantle. Depending on the chemical composition of what gets lodged in between the mollusk shell and the mantle, the different color of pearl is produced, or a different color of pearl is produced. Bivalves are going to coat these objects with thin sheets of nacre. And then another thing to be aware of is that some bivalves are zebra mussels as well. These are usually sessile because they're attached to the bottoms of boats and ships. They're also considered an invasive species. Last, in our study of mollusks are the cephalopods. The cephalopods consist of a large head with attached tentacles, and essentially the tentacles are a divided foot, if we think about it. Cephalopods have a lifestyle of fast, agile predators. They're very intelligent. Their shell is small and internal, as in squid, and then missing altogether, as in an octopus. Giant squid are one of the largest invertebrates, and they do have the largest eye of all animals. Their bodies are built for speed because they're hungry carnivores. They have a beak-like jaw or a radule to crush or rip prey apart. They're going to move, octopus move essentially by drawing in water and then firing out the anterior end. So they're siphoning water to move at quick speeds. They do have an impressive color palette for communication and camouflage. And then they have large brains and sophisticated sense organs that contribute to their success as mobile predators. And like I said before, they're the most intelligent invertebrates. That covers our study of mollusks. So now moving on to Annelids, section 18.1 or 18.10 in your textbook. Annelids were the first to develop what we call segmentation, which is the subdivision of the body along its length into a series of repeated parts. This segmentation is going to allow for greater flexibility and mobility amongst the species in the phylum Annelid. Each segment contains digestive, excretory, and circulatory and locomotor organs. They also were the first to develop a true coelom and a trochopore larval stage like the molluscs. They range in size from 1 millimeter to 3 meters, and they live in the damp soil and the sea and most freshwater habitats. You can see the various parts of I believe this is an earthworm, but we're going to learn a little bit more about these parts when we do our earthworm dissection. There's what important thing that I want you to understand is that there's a difference between the circulatory system. So there can be an open circulatory system and a closed circulatory system. The open circulatory system is a system in which the fluid is pumped through vessels that open into spaces surrounding tissues and organs. Mollusks and arthropods have open circulatory systems. A closed circulatory system is a system in which blood remains enclosed in vessels as it distributes nutrients and oxygen throughout the body. Annelids and vertebrates are going to have closed circulatory systems. You have a closed circulatory system, and that you have blood that is enclosed in veins and vessels as it moves throughout your body. Each segment surrounded by a longitudinal and a circulator muscles. Earthworms move by coordinating the contraction of these two sets of muscles, and the muscles are going to work against the pressure of the fluid in each segment of the body cavity. So like an inchworm, they're going to pick up the muscles that are working in the longitudinal and the circular muscles together. They're going to pick up a segment and pick up another segment and then put that segment down to inch forward. They work their way through the soil by extracting nutrients, and as that soil passes through their digestive tube. Hermaphrodites are one characteristic of organisms in the phylum Annelida. They're going to have both male and female reproductive structures, and they're going to cross-fertilize by exchanging sperm. Two major clades of the phylum Annelida are going to be the Orontians and the Sedentarians. The Orontians are marine worms. They're active and live a mobile lifestyle. Their heads are well equipped with sensory organs for moving about in search of food. They have a pair of paddle-like appendages that extend from each body segment and help with this locomotion. The sedentarians are going to be less mobile. These include your earthworms, many tube dwellers, and also leeches. The tube dwellers build tubes by secreting calcium carbonate or by mixing mucus with bits of sand and broken shells. The leeches are notorious for their blood-sucking habits, and they inhabit fresh water. Some can be found in saltwater environments as well. And until the 1920s, physicians used leeches for bloodletting because they believed that it got rid of all the bad things in the blood. Some medical doctors today still use leeches essentially for recirculating limbs that have become detached, but I haven't heard of that being a common practice. The end of lecture questions. So what I would like you to do at the end of the lecture is to write the answers to these questions down on a piece of paper, and then bring these answers to class on Thursday when we have our Zoom meeting. And I will basically call on random individuals to answer these questions. So you want to make sure that you have the answers down for 1 through 8. Any questions on the lecture, please send me a message. I hope that you have a great day and happy Earth Day. So do something for the environment today, whether it's go for a walk or be conscious of the things that you do. Thank you.